Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles. To be specific, hello everybody and welcome to another episode of The Unhappy Hour. The Unhappy Hour. Here at the NewAmericanMedia.com. Yes, it's time for the Ohio State Buckeyes to defend their national championship title. But today's show is not going to be about that. Today's show is going to be about the Cleveland Browns. Could this be the year? Yeah, I know, not a lot of people are saying it, but I'll say it. I'll wonder about it out loud. Because that's what we do here. That's what we've done here. That's what we're going to keep doing here. Where is here? Let's tell you.
It's the Unhappy Hour.
Yep, that's who we are. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Engelman, your host. Do us a favor, check out thenewamericanmedia.com. It's where you listen to our show live, and we tweeted out and just put a Facebook message out that we were talking about the Cleveland Browns 2015 season and where you can click play to listen live. So, thenewamericanmedia.com on the right-hand side, it has our Facebook feed on the bottom right. Go ahead and like our page. Follow us on Twitter at American_media_. And right above that on the right-hand side is TNAM Radio. That's where you click play to listen live and participate in this show. So, yes, Cleveland Browns, new season. A new chance to cross your fingers again. Is this the year that we put it together and become a playoff team? Oh, it's been so long. Geez, even in 2007 with Derek Anderson, what we were half game out or a game out? Couldn't even make it happen that year. So anyhow, let's talk about this year. It's a new season. Shockingly, another quarterback, another new quarterback, a new old quarterback. But I'm excited for the season. I always am. I'm the eternal optimist, and we'll bring in Brandon Odell to discuss, as he has done for many years.
Hello.
Brandon, you're live on the air. Welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Living the dream, of course. Living the dream. I said you've been joining us for a while now on these shows. I suppose you were probably one of our first guests about 4.5 years ago, if you recall back that far.
It's been a while, that's for sure.
Yeah, it has, and it's been a while since the Browns have made... When's the last time the Browns made the playoffs?
2002? It was the same year the Buckeyes won the first the Jim Tressel title. Remember
Dennis Northcutt.
The Steelers game was that next day, right after the Buckeyes won the title.
Dennis Northcutt, right? The drop when he was wide open hits him in the numbers, and we had to punt, and then they came down and won the game. Oh man, yeah. Thanks for reminding me. All right. Well, hey man, it's It has not been a successful relaunch for the franchise since Art Modell stole the team. But here we are. It's another new season. It's another new quarterback, a new old quarterback. And I don't know. I don't know where you want to pick things up and start things off, rather. I guess maybe how about roster cuts, and then we'll kind of go into the overview of the season in general.
We're still waiting to see who the final 53 will be.
Right.
Do you have some individual players that you think really maybe have set themselves apart with a chance to make the final roster, and then maybe I can give you a few myself?
Man, I might go take the opposite approach, the converse to that. I might say that there are some players that certainly have not proven they deserve to be here. Terrell Pryor is one. Dwayne Bowe is one. Johnny's proven it. Johnny looked good in those first two games, and I don't know if it's tendonitis or whatever's going on in his elbow. I'll take Johnny. That's fine. But I mean, just to pick a few players right off the top of my head, I mean, Terrell Pryor and Dwayne Bowe, both Browns receivers, they haven't proven anything. Dwayne Bowe did not look good. He didn't look very engaged or really he didn't look all that good yesterday, and he sat out all the preseason. And Terrell Pryor, I mean, he's converting from quarterback, and I don't know, he didn't really show us all that much yesterday, but I tend to think his position is very safe on the team. And then Phil Taylor didn't prove, maybe it was partially his health, of course. Even the Steelers wouldn't sign him with his knee issue. But Phil Taylor, I mean, going back to revisit that draft, that Julio Jones trade, I mean, I've seen some of the projections of what we could have done that year versus what we did. And, between him and Owen Marisic and a couple other guys, we got nothing out of that. And the Atlanta Falcons just, they have the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. So I guess my answer to that is I've seen players play themselves out of staying on the team. Do you have any comment on some of those players that maybe have underperformed, or in the case of Phil Taylor, just became too big a burden to continue keeping on the roster?
Well, real quick in defense of that, the famous Julio Jones trade. Ultimately, Tom Heckert did end up finding us a wide receiver in that situation. It was Josh Gordon, who was picked in the supplemental draft, and Josh Gordon, if he wasn't, if he didn't have his issues, would be every bit as well known and just well respected in the NFL as Julio Jones. So we had that wide receiver. We just can't keep him on the field.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
As far as the moves that have or have not been made in the last few days, as far as cuts go, the Terrell Pryor situation is an interesting one because I think between Terrell Pryor and Dwayne Bowe, they each, if there were any of the younger guys that had that same skill set, with the exception of maybe Vince Mailey, but you think about most of the other players are all the short, shifty guys, and then you have Terrell Pryor and Dwayne Bowe that each present a much larger body for the quarterback to throw to and to be able to withstand some punishment. So I certainly don't think that the team is going to cut both of them. I guess it's a possibility that one of them might be gone. I will say this, that I think that Terrell Pryor is one of those players that if you cut him, like you lost him, and someone else is going to give him a shot, and he is going to be successful for them, provided that he can stay healthy.
Right.
I just think he's too big and too good of an athlete to cut. You're talking about a guy that has the size of Calvin Johnson, and even if he could just be a red zone threat or just a decoy half the time, there are just some things that you can do with him that you can't do with anyone else on the roster. So for that reason alone, putting injuries aside, I think that you can give Terrell Pryor a chance, because if he flames out, I think that there are plenty of guys like Dwayne Bowe that you could probably find.
I'm hearing though that his guaranteed money's too big though. He's already signed. He's already here. He's guaranteed the money, and that's one of the determining factors on the team. And I think Patton even came out and said Dwayne Bowe's roster position is not in doubt. So I'm even just taking him out of the equation necessarily, other than to say that he hasn't impressed me with anything since he's been here. And was it Josh Lenz and there's a cut, Travis Benjamin. It's just kind of hard with this roster to look around at the wide receivers and just. I think Hartline's going to be the real deal. I'm really happy about Hartline, but it's hard to look at Pryor. Look at Mailey and look at Bowe and say they all deserve this when some of the other guys might have actually outplayed them for the job. I think the Pryor thing might be more of a lock, but would you really just dump your fourth-round pick because someone outplayed him in minicamp? The preseason? I don't know. Would you?
I don't know either. I think that's a tough problem to have, but they were basically given. A fourth rounder is given every chance to succeed and play a part on the team, and I don't know if he necessarily has done it. But then again, the guys that he's going up against, you're talking about other guys that also haven't done it as well.
Right.
And really, any of them, it's probably an injury issue more than it is anything else. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Travis Benjamin, I think, has done everything he can possibly do to show that he can be a playmaker for this team. So I like him. You haven't really seen much from Taylor Gabriel this offseason, but I think that we certainly saw he had, was able to make some big plays for us last year, and we could expect to see some good things from him. Hawkins is another guy we've not really seen much out of him.
Right.
How many of these little shifty guys do you really need to play that quote-unquote number 3 receiver? So, but once again, none of these guys are being talked about as, possibilities to be cut. So, if you're maybe looking at some names of some players that might be gone, I think Billy Wynn, popular player with the fans, but just might not necessarily have a spot for him. I think, kind of the same thing with the Phil Taylor stuff. He's been injured quite a bit. Now he's like a 5th or 6th rounder, so, much different situation than a 1st rounder. But, he's another guy that basically, I think just availability has been one of his biggest issues.
Well, I wonder if they're saying that Bill Kaharich is going to take over for GM during Ray Farmer's suspension. It's funny. Tom Brady walks on everything. He might as well just walk on water at this point. And here we are, the Browns. Browns GM is suspended for a few games. Josh Gordon's out for the season, and Tom Brady's just laughing his way onto the field for opening game. It's kind of incredible. But, I just wonder how much Ray Farmer and the team were trying to trade, like a Billy Wynn for a 7th round. Matt Barkley just went for a conditional 7th round pick, according to reports I just saw to the Cardinals. I just wonder if, since they're so heavy on the defensive line and Danny Shelton really anchoring that now, I just wonder, you think that they were out there aggressively pursuing some trade options, or, with Phil Taylor's questionable health, that there weren't a lot of takers? It just kind of seems like, hey, if we're heavy at this position, let's stock up on some draft picks, or, get some, pick a position on the team where we're thin and bring somebody in, maybe for a 3rd quarterback even.
Well, face it, the Steelers have a defense that definitely could have used Phil Taylor somewhere, and if they're even saying that that he's not ready to play, I think, frankly speaking, there's not much that another team was going to do. That before a trade would have been finalized, they would have been able to have their health team do an exam on Phil Taylor, and they would have seen the same thing in the draft, and the trade would have been null and void.
Right.
So I think that you have to take that into account. If he had been signed by the Steelers, then I think that there would be a lot more questions about, we could have gotten at least something for him.
Yeah, and it's just curious this time of year. Rarely are the Browns in a situation where they have too much of a good thing. At least recently, and you've just kind of seen that with these cuts. It's not really that somebody is completely playing terribly out there. It's just that look at receiver. What do you think of Lenz? You think he's going to stick around?
I think he's a guy that we like for the practice squad, but I think he's a guy. There are a lot of these type of players that are solid, but just not necessarily explosive. And you need explosive players at the skill position. So I think that's why he's a player that maybe doesn't necessarily shine. If Brian Hartline goes down, maybe he's a guy that if you had on the practice squad could do some of the same things for you.
Yeah, Hartline has looked really good in the preseason. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. He's been solid, and no need to push him too much as far as putting him out there in that 4th game. I think he definitely has his spot high up on the high up in the receivers room, and yes, he has looked very good.
Well, for a little bit there, both of our quarterbacks look good. Johnny Manziel appears to have made just a ton of progress from last year, being from a baby deer in headlights, turning into someone that kind of understand. He looks like he understands what's going on around him, as opposed to just hike the ball and run around and pretend it's A&M again, which it's not. But with the elbow injury, are you concerned about Manziel's durability in the league? I mean, he's only on year 2, or is it just this is preseason? We saw progress out of him. Shut him down. We get him all nice and healed up with that elbow. There's no need to push it. He's not the week 1 starter. There's nothing to worry about. Where do you kind of land with Manziel? What you've seen this preseason, both mentally, physically, and then during the games?
Exactly what you said. I think that him not being available for the 4th preseason game, I don't think is the end of the world. He's not the starting quarterback, and frankly, if everything went well this year, hypothetically, we wouldn't even see him on the field. So it should be a relative moot point. Now, if McCown was banged up, I would have a lot more concern. But in the meantime, supposedly he might even be starting to throw today, I heard, and
Okay.
I mean, he went to Dr. James Andrews. He received the okay from him. So I mean, I think that you rest it, and you hope that maybe if he has to come in for some, like a few plays in the 4th game or 8th game of the year, or has to take over for 2 weeks in the 10th and 11th week, by whenever that might occur, he's had enough time to keep things, all healed up by then.
And what about Josh McCown? He came out against his former team and looked pretty darn good. Some nice long drives, some touchdowns. Josh McCown, in a way, it kind of reminds me of Jake Delhomme. Comes in, older guy, mid-30s, and he looked kind of good in a couple of those preseason games, and then he just went down with an injury. I mean, I guess it was nothing too unexpected, but all that stuff aside that you can't predict, what do you make of what you've seen out of McCown so far?
Solid. I'd love to see the team throw the ball down the field more. I know that you don't want to show all that stuff in the preseason, and they are going to be more of a West Coast offense, so I'm sure a lot of the more downfield packages and throws they do have, they're kind of trying to keep in the, kind of keep covered up a little bit. And maybe that's why you're not necessarily seeing as much of Andrew Hawkins and Taylor Gabriel as far as having their numbers be called. Maybe there are some packages or some plays that Coach DeFlippo has in mind that are going to get them open down the field. There were definitely some times that Taylor Gabriel was able to get behind the defense on those bootlegs by Brian Hoyer last year. So you'd like to see the same sort of thing with maybe a more athletic player who has a little bit of a stronger arm in Josh McCown.
All right, talk about athletic player. I want to talk about Brian Hoyer, if you're surprised that he's a starter down there in Houston. Definitely want to talk about the running backs, but you talked about a more mobile player. Let's talk about Robert Griffin. If we want to go back a couple years and revisit trades that we made and trades that we didn't, Lord almighty, what Washington gave up to take this kid. And it's kind of been a nonstop train wreck. There's a lot of rumors out there that people don't like being around him or don't like him in the locker room. He's constantly injured, and it just seems like whatever head coach they put out there in Washington and whatever system they're using, it's just not working for RG3. If you were the Browns, wouldn't it be funny too if the interim Bill Kaharich goes ahead and just trades away for Robert Griffin III while Ray Farmer's on suspension? That would be funny. But if you were the Browns, would you bring in RG3 to be there with Manziel? I mean, two players that have both had their problems in the early stages of their careers, both Heisman winners, guys that really understand the game. Would you take a flyer on him at that second, third quarterback spot, or would you just too much damaged goods?
I think probably we have our own quarterback worries as far as trying to rebuild somebody. We don't need to be working on rebuilding or repairing two different players at the same time. I think that when healthy, RG3 has certainly a superior skill set to what Johnny Manziel has, but has had much more serious injury issues than what Johnny Manziel has. I guess probably because of the fact that he's started a lot more games. I haven't necessarily seen enough of Robert Griffin to completely write him off at this point. But I think that most likely he's just going to kind of be another guy that sort of flames out, a la Vince Young. Probably a good name that comes to mind.
Yeah,
wins Offensive Rookie of the Year. Big things are expected of him, and whether it's injuries or boneheadedness, just is never able to build upon the stellar rookie season.
Yeah, I mean, kind of reminds me a little bit of Peyton Hillis, another Madden cover boy back in the day. Kind of came in strong, and then just everything that could have went wrong did go wrong. So for somebody that kind of, I don't know, you can't say everything went wrong, but back to Brian Hoyer a little bit, because last year he was under the gun. He hurt his knee. They went out and signed Johnny Manziel. Everybody got the Johnny Manziel jerseys. They wanted him from day one. Hoyer came out. He looked good the first half of the year. And then everything just kind of went south. And then Johnny came in. Johnny just fumbled and bumbled and stumbled, validating that Hoyer was the guy. But Hoyer just got tired or something halfway through the year. He wasn't the same player. Are you surprised to see him get the nod down there with the Houston Texans to be their starting quarterback? I mean, because that's kind of what he wanted. He needed the fresh start away from Johnny, and he thought he could be a starter in the league. And turns out, at least for Week 1, he's going to be. What do you make of that?
I think it's great for him. I have nothing against Brian Hoyer whatsoever, and I hope he does well. I certainly understand the problem. Even if he would have been healthy, for the rest of the season, and say the season where he tore his ACL,
right, against the Bills.
Say that he had a solid year and came into last season as the starter, but they drafted Manziel just because they wanted to have a future guy. If Hoyer would have had the same kind of season, it would have been the same. It would have been the same result. Chances are they would have said, "Hey, see ya. We're not going to give you a long-term deal. You've not really shown us." But, either way, I hope good things for him. I think it was just probably the right thing for both sides to go their separate ways. It was a good story, and I would have loved to have, had it continue. But at the same time, frankly speaking, that team was his. That team was not Johnny's, and his play just wasn't good enough as the season wore on.
Yeah, he really did. He just kind of played himself out of a job. They kept saying Johnny wasn't ready, and you reach that point about 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the season, and you just go, I don't care how not ready Johnny is. You got to put him in there. He can't be any worse than this, which was very different from when the Browns were. Around Halloween in first place in the division, the AFC North, like that's kind of impressive. And the Browns are returning a lot of these, a lot of the same players on defense, except that they've upgraded at several positions. Let's go through the defense a little bit. I think we spent the primary chunk of what we were doing right there talking offense. I do want to get back to the running backs, but to make sure before we run out of time, let's talk about that secondary. Losing a few players and Joe Hayden coming back. What do you make of this secondary? Could they be fantastic this year, or is that a little too lofty of an expectation out of them?
They definitely can be, a highly effective, good team. They ended up having such great numbers last year as a defensive backfield, but let's face it, teams knew where they could attack us and just attacked us there more frequently. Probably the goal, the best case scenario would be if say that they were even just dropping down a few notches in the totem pole of how good their passing numbers against for opponents were. If they got maybe a little bit more down to earth there, but the run defense was far better, then you would have, what would probably be certainly a top 10 defense in the league. So, and I mean, they have all the pieces. There's no doubt about that. They have really good players. I think that they're either in full prime. With Joe Hayden, you have a guy like Tayshaun Gibson that's probably approaching full prime, and then you have maybe like Dante Whitner and certainly Traymon Williams that are probably like just maybe about 2 seasons past their prime.
But still very good, very effective, very smart players.
Sure.
Yeah, and some people have said
not necessarily like the same sort of cornerstones as what the other players are. But you know what? We haven't really seen Traymon Williams. We can't really say much truly about what he is or isn't. We knew what Buster Screen was, and we think we know what
Whitner.
Justin Gilbert is, which isn't a whole lot. So it'll be. We'll see what we get out of Traymon Williams, but we expect to get a solid veteran. Like a Sheldon Brown that we had a few years ago, and Sheldon Brown got burned sometimes. So let's not think that Traymon Williams is Darrelle Revis out there.
Hey, we sure went out and spent like he was though. He got quite a few bucks to come on over from Green Bay.
About the same amount of money as what we gave as what Buster Screen got.
Yeah, so, I mean that is true, but on the other hand, some of these positions are being way overpaid. I mean, that's easy to say. In capitalism, there is no such thing as overpaying. What someone's value is whatever somebody is willing to pay for it. And since nobody's being forced to pay anyone for anything, I guess that is the current market rate. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people say that that's going to be an upgrade over Buster Screen, who, he was not a perfect player. We can leave it there. But he was highly regarded in a very thin class of free agents. So, he took the money and ran. What about the linebackers on the team? I mean, you were hearing not too long ago, a few people wondering if Barkevious Mingo might be on the block or on the bubble, if you will. Is he going to stay with the team? Carlos Dansby coming back from injury. What do you make of the whole linebacker core in general?
It's an interesting question. I mean, you like Dansby, you like Kirksey, you like Robertson at inside linebacker. When you start talking about the outside linebackers, you like Paul Kruger. But overall, you know what his job is. It's really to be a pass rusher. But on the other side, Mingo has never quite been able to develop. That's true. Injuries, I think, have played a big part of that. But just doesn't seem to have that same level of power as he does speed. And you need to have a little bit more of both to be a truly elite pass rusher. This Nate Orchard is an interesting-looking player.
Yeah.
Once again, I mean, it's hard because it's preseason. It'll be exciting to see what we get out of him in the regular season. A lot of people are expecting really good things from him. At the very least, to be what you would consider to be a replacement for Jabal Sheard.
Okay.
And then you think about Scott Solomon, a solid, probably just a solid overall, basher kind of player. You feel pretty good about the linebackers. Not great, but if you have a great back end and what we hope will be, at the very least, a very solid front end with the chance to be great, the linebackers are able to, really look pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's. I think back to my playing days, and it's hard to say who did what or who created what. Was it the system? Was it the players? Was it the linemen? Was it the linebackers? Was it the defensive backs? Who knows? Who cares? But I know that when I did my job on the defensive line, when I was in the right spot at defensive end, and I had a couple main priorities on every play, pass rushing or not, but as long as nothing got between me and the sideline, my middle and outside linebackers behind me knew what they could expect from me. And that allowed them to play a game a certain way where they could then play a little differently, knowing that I'm going to do my job. So then if they don't have to cover the sideline, they can take a different angle of attack and just really smear things around when it kind of tries to cut around toward the middle of the field. And yeah, I mean, with linebackers, the linemen have to do their jobs and stay in their lanes, and it really does open things up. And Danny Shelton, the fact that we were opened up as a run defense was the reason why he was our picked in the first round. He was that important. Bring him in as a behemoth, and I'll tell you what,
he is nasty too. I can't wait to see him playing against the Steelers.
Same here. How about a couple nice hits on Roethlisberger for old time's sakes, for all the times they've been laughing at us for a decade? Talk about his nasty streak.
Oh, I just think, he brings some charisma. He brings energy. He's just a monster. Everything that we've heard about him is just he has legs the size of tree trunks, and yet is very, very nimble for his size. So I think he's going to make an instant impact. Obviously, Lord willing, he stays healthy, because I think that he immediately makes the interior of your defense much, much more dynamic. You talk about Randy Starks, picked him up from Miami, a solid starter. Des Bryant is really going to be able to do what he does best, which is explode and give an interior pass rush so much more, because there are going to be so many doubles for Danny Shelton, even as a rookie, just because he is so big.
Yeah.
And then when you think about some of the other guys, Parma's own Jamie Meter is looking like he has made a good case for himself to make this team.
We'll talk about his good case.
John Hughes, they gave a nice contract to stick around here. We have a lot of really solid players on that D-line. Don't forget, Ataba Rubin left in the offseason as well, and Phil Taylor now is gone, and yet we are probably more optimistic about this defensive line than we've been in several years.
But that's the thing. When you bring in a defensive guy, a Mike Pettin, and he's involved with Ray Farmer, and you have a couple years now, year two, to build a system, and that's why Urban Meyer, he was surprised. It surprised LeBron James that they got to the finals. The Cavaliers did this year, especially with the injuries. In Miami, they didn't win it their first year. He was surprised that the team came together so quickly. And with this now, you're seeing with Urban Meyer too. He didn't expect this team to be able to win the national title this year. He thought that the window was going to open next year. Turns out the system's working a lot better than they thought, and they recruited really well, and they were able to get the title last year. But give them a little bit of time, and then they're going to build the team. They're going to reform the team into the image of the players that they want, and you got to kind of give them a leash to do that. And I think in the NFL, the Browns especially, we've been so quick to cycle through our general managers and our team presidents and our head coaches, and it's just a constant revolving door. Did Jamie Meter make the team? Because talk about him for a second. He's from your hometown, and he got a very interesting grading a couple of days ago. I'm sure that's what you're referencing, right?
Oh, no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, he graded out as having the best performance in all the preseason from all defensive linemen across the NFL. He's graded number one.
Well, good for him. Yeah, I definitely did not know that.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Actually, his dad was my high school defensive line coach. I actually, I actually remember I believe he has an older brother who's probably maybe, like, if Jamie Meter's a young man at like 24 or 25, his older brother is probably maybe 29 or 30. I remember Coach Meter having a couple of sons, and they were both big boys, but obviously I think Jamie would have been the littlest one. But his other son, I certainly remember coming to practice and stuff.
Yeah, well, he's making a case. But let's bounce back over from defense. over to the offense again because I didn't really have a chance to get to the O-line or the running backs. Duke Johnson seemed to be electric, and unfortunately, he got that nasty concussion and this, that, and the other. So now it's Crow and West, and it looks a little bit more like Crow's the guy. I mean, what do you make of the running back situation? They're even talking bringing Ray Rice.
I think Crowell's the guy going into the season. I mean, he certainly showed last year that he has some explosiveness, and I think a healthy Alex Mack is going to make a big difference. But so far, the offensive line has had a lot of questions. But they're not playing. Once again, all the questions are like, let's get to week one and show what we really are. Because they went out week one and they scored 27 points versus the Steelers or whatever. I mean, they can put points on the board. I think regular season and preseason are two entirely different animals. So let's see what they do in the regular season, and then you can see how an offensive line is able to control a game as it goes further into a game rather than just being out after a few series. So, I like our chance. Our offensive line, our defensive line, two things supposed to be the strengths of our team. You think about your skill position players. Maybe there's not as much there, or maybe a guy like Travis Benjamin is able to take the next step a little bit. I think Travis Benjamin is a guy that certainly can take the top off the defense. Like a Devin Hester, Percy Harvin type of talent. So I like him. I like Crowell. I think Crowell and West are solid enough. I don't think you have to worry about bringing in another running back. Maybe if it's weeks 4 or 5 and there is someone of Ray Rice's talent that is available without Ray Rice's baggage. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. Ray Rice was a descending player when before the incident happened. Had at least 1.5 seasons of descending play. It's not like we're getting Jamal Lewis here, who was very solid before he was let go by the Ravens. So, and Jamal Lewis didn't have the same. He did have some character issues, but not the same level of character issues that Ray Rice has, and certainly not the same level of media coverage.
I love how we juggle the amount of baggage people have in the NFL. I mean, between Tom Brady and Michael Vick and go down the line. Hell, even throw Tim Tebow in there. Some people are just so anti-Christian they can't stand the guy. It's insane. But there's so many cases in the NFL of spousal abuse and reckless driving and Dante Stallworth killed a guy in his car. Anyway, we could do the Ray Caruth and go down the OJ route and talk about all this, but we've had a couple people on the Browns over the years, and let's face it, Jim Brown, he does not have a squeaky clean past either. Let's not kid ourselves and forget about that. But yeah, I mean, you make a very good point. There are a lot of players of Ray Rice's talent without Ray Rice's baggage. It makes a lot of sense. The only thing that he could bring to the table, though, differently, would be the football preparation wisdom. As the veteran that it performed at a very high level for a while, and he would be hungry to really perform well if he was here, because nobody else has given him a shot. He might be able to provide that pro football, that football professionalism that, maybe that's what Crowell is missing. Maybe that's what West is missing. Maybe they just kind of need to see what a professional running back does day in and day out and game in and game out, because you've heard the word entitled thrown around with the Browns running backs. Like nobody's really seizing the position.
There's a lot of other professionals on that team to model yourself after. It doesn't have to be someone in the exact same room that you are. You're all on a team together. There's a lot of role models. What they need to do is go out there and produce, and there won't be any issues. So, no issues and no injuries, and there is no concern. So,
All right, that's fair. And then before we get into like a prediction, then special teams. How do you feel about our kicker? And then kicker. It was so nice watching that punt return for a touchdown the other day against the Buccaneers. I remember the days when Josh Cribbs and our special teams was just, it kept us in games. It was that astonishingly good, and then it's been almost just as equally miserable for the past couple years. So, what do you make of special teams in general?
I mean, obviously, I loved seeing Benjamin run one back. I think that Andy Lee is going to be just fine. No problems there. I hope that they just go with this Coons at kicker and just see what the kid has before they just release him like before week 1 and sign Garrett Hartley again, or obviously I guess he just got injured, but to get another retread. I think that just because you say, well, we want someone who has some experience and has kicked in an NFL game before. At some point, everyone has to have their first kick, Yeah. Otherwise, there would never be any players in the NFL. At some point, you need to be a rookie and have, and to just do it for the first time. So, I hope he sticks. I hope he does well. And as far as anything else on the team, I mean, I guess. There's no reason to feel negative about the special teams. That's for sure.
All right, so then let's put it all together. Mike Pettin, are you able to even gauge any improvement from last year? I mean, he does so much of what he does behind the scenes, and working with player personnel and scheming, and that stuff's going to reveal itself throughout the season. Can you even get a gauge on anything about Pettin that he's doing better or worse than last year?
Once again, it's the preseason. I think once the regular season starts, you can probably get a much better read on that. He's always been a pretty calm, cool, and collected guy, and I like that. I don't think that coaching is our issue right now. Our season gets made. It's a make or break on quarterback play, and it's like that for 31 other teams in the NFL as well. The worst coach in the world looks great when you have a winning quarterback. So that has been the problem with every single Browns regime that we've had since we've come back. Is just put Tim Couch on this team, and we're probably going to be like a very competitive team. Tim Couch was playing with a ton of scrubs. We don't have a bunch of scrubs on this team right now. And
the one position that we did kind of overlook then, I guess tight end and lineman. That's who the quarterback's coming. That's what's going to set everything up.
I don't have a whole lot of time, so yeah, we got to start wrapping it up.
Yeah, line. Cam Irving, Alex Mack, tight end. What do you make of that spot right there then?
I'm not really too sure. Cam Irving, I think, they want him to be basically, kind of like a super sub. If that's all that he has to be because of the fact that we're getting solid play and injury-free play from the other members of the line, then I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. There are certainly some winning teams in football. Look at the Steelers, who a lot of times their first rounders might not even start that year, their rookie year. So, if he is coming in on a more limited basis or can just be that solid backup, I don't think anybody has any issue with that. Tight ends, I guess solid but not spectacular is what you hope from them. And maybe this EJ Bibbs can be a little bit of a playmaker, but he's playing against third stringers. Put him in there in the regular season, and we'll see if he can make some plays for us.
Yeah, they're seeming to love EJ Bibbs, and it would just be so great for Joe Thomas to see a really competitive Browns playoff team. I really want that for Joe Thomas. I want it to happen this year. So let's wrap it up then. What is your prediction on the season? What do you think we're looking at? You know what I think we're looking at: an undefeated Cleveland Browns team that wins the Super Bowl.
Oh God, give me a break, Brian. Give me a real prediction. You're not like it's a real prediction. You know that they're not going undefeated.
I don't know that. I don't know that.
You do too.
No,
they're
I
not
don't.
going undefeated.
I could tell you that
your sparkle in the sunshine, 16-0, and then give a realistic. If they don't go 16-0 and they don't go 15-1, here's what I think they're going to do. Because if I'm going to say that, I'm going to say I think that they're most likely going to go. I think they're probably going to be an 8-8 team. I think that you're going to see Manziel at some point this season, and I think that they're going to be a team that kind of has their ups and their downs, and that's comes back to quarterback play. So basically every single team in the league is always looking for the guy until they have the guy, and once they have the guy, they can start filling in the blanks with all those other pieces and get rocking. I don't know if we have the guy. I'm assuming we don't. I don't think that Josh McCown is going to be the second coming of Rich Gannon all of a sudden and win an MVP at age 37 or something. But I think he could be solid, and I think that we have a lot of other pieces in place, especially defensively, to be able to assist him in winning games. So I'm going to say 8-8, 9-7 is probably. The people that are predicting them to only have 4 wins, I think that their defense is too good for that, and I think that their offense can be at least adequate to win them more than 4 games. But once again, I don't know. It just really kind of depends on how all the chips fall into place. But yeah I'm going to say 8-8 is what I think. If they ever get the quarterback thing figured out, then you start moving above that line. But until they do, I think they have a really good defense, and they have a question at quarterback. Like a lot of teams.
Yeah, a lot of teams do. But I saw. I don't know. I watched Trent Dilfer win a Super Bowl with a very good defense behind him. The Browns have a very strong offensive line. I think we have the pieces in place where we could be an 11-5 team, and we could go to the second round of the playoffs. Absolutely. Four wins.
Win in your division, then. That's what they'll have to do.
Hey, you know what? I'll take it. And I don't see them as a 4-win team. That's ridiculous to me. I think the defense and special teams are going to accidentally get us 6, and I think if the defense and special teams play above and beyond, if the offensive line plays like it did the first half of the year last year, I mean, you're talking an extra 2, an extra 4, an extra 1. I could definitely see them winning 11 games and going in the playoffs, But every year I just hold out hope against all hope that we'll go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. So I got to enjoy that for at least a week. I cannot be proven wrong for a minimum of about 8 days or so. So anyway, Brandon, I'll let you get going. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully we can talk some more during the football season as it progresses, and hopefully as the Browns are making another run like last year toward the playoffs.
Well, we shall see. I mean, it was a fun ride while it lasted. It just didn't last long enough last year. So, go Browns.
Go Browns. Yeah, the top thrill dragster at Cedar Point's fantastic, but by the time you realize how cool it is, it's over. Brandon, thanks for joining us again. And for everybody out there, check us out, youtube.com/The New American Media. Subscribe and all that other stuff. I appreciate you. I love you, and I'm out. Peace.
And this is John B. Wells reminding you that not only is Brian Engelman a cool guy, and not only is the newamericanmedia.com a very cool platform, but here's a cool idea for you, too. Are you alone? Not really. Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? You do. Of course you do. Everybody does. One or the other, maybe even both. There are a lot of dogs and cats that are at shelters right now, and if somebody doesn't take them home, they're going to wind up euthanized. That's a nice way of saying they're going to be killed, because there's simply not enough room. I guarantee it, the best dogs and the best cats, the best pets, come from shelters. There's something about dogs and cats. They know. They know where they are. You walk through one of them, and certainly at least one is going to look at you and go, I wish you'd take me home. I'm in hell. Please take me out of here. It'll be the best thing that you ever did for your soul. You'll feel good about it. And not only that, but you have a friend for life. Doesn't matter if you got money, you don't have money. Well, it doesn't make any difference to a dog or cat. All they need is the sound of your voice and maybe even the stroke of your hand, and they're fine. Maybe a little food every once in a while. The sweetest sound that those pets ever hear is your voice. Think it over and adopt a cat or a dog from a local shelter today. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did.